Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Geek Dad Report and WatchPlayRead Roundtable review of Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix, like you didn't already know. I am Brian West, your usual host, and with me tonight I got Kaitlyn Booth. Say hello.
Hi.
Kaitlyn. She is our film critic extraordinaire on the website and all-around, basically, comic, I don't know, female nerd, geek, awesome person.
Sure, we'll go with that. Those are adjectives.
You like those? Yeah, I just threw
It's a
a
good
bunch out
title.
there. It's the only ones I could think of, so I'm not gonna lie. And we also have Matt Johnson with us tonight. Yeah, that's him waving. He's been on the show with us before, but he has only been the floating voice. So it is nice to finally let our listeners and viewers put a face to that wonderful voice, Matt. All right, well, super
I
talkative.
guess I should have talked there.
Since he's not going to introduce himself, Matt likes to write comic book reviews and pretty much just shoot movies and hang out with us. So, yeah, he's pretty new to the website, but we are glad to have him. So, this is our roundtable for tonight. It's not a large one, but it is a highly excitable, knowledgeable one.
Yay!
And like I said, we're here to talk about all the wonderful, amazing things from Daredevil Season 2. This is a full spoiler review of everything that happened. So if you have not watched Daredevil Season 2, do not watch this. I mean, you can if you want to, but we are going to tell everything. Like, Wilson Fisk was in it. So, hey, I'm just throwing that out there right now. So if you did not know this is spoilers, you do now. So, hey.
The part where they killed Daredevil's really depressing, too.
Yeah, there's that. So, guys, I mean, what'd you guys think of Daredevil Season 2?
Oh, man. I thought it was perfect. Like, it was everything I needed from it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It had its issues, but I think it had the same issues pretty much as season 1.
Mm-hmm.
There was one major issue for me that we can get into a little later that I've written about extensively already.
Wouldn't happen to be about a Psy-wielding super ninja, would it?
Yes, it would, and it's not necessarily her as it is the story around her. But I loved all the stuff with the Punisher. I've only really read one Punisher comic, and that was the most recent Edmonton run.
Mm-hmm.
And I only picked it up because I really liked his Black Widow run. So I was like, oh, this looks same guy. Let's give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? And but that's probably the most compelling that Frank Castle has ever been.
Oh,
like
yeah.
ever.
No, I
Yeah,
would have to agree with you on that. I also love the season. I did find some issues with it. It wasn't the same issues I found with Season 1. Season 1, for me, the one issue I had with Season 1 was that towards the end it started to falter a little bit. It kind of ran flat about episode 8 or 9. I still believe that these Netflix series that Marvel do could probably go 10 episodes. It might actually help the general storytelling. But that being said, I actually thought this one was much better in that aspect just because it broke it up into two separate stories, really. It started with the Punisher, then went with Elektra, and then kind of wrapped everything together. Not quite in a nice little bow, but I felt like going with two separate storylines did do the story justice. It didn't seem to fall flat like the first season did towards the end. That being said, I felt neither storyline was as strong as the Wilson Fisk Kingpin storyline of the first one, so it's it's hard to compare the two in that aspect. The first season felt much more like a movie than season 2 did, where season 2 felt much more like a television show, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a knock on it, but the first one, because it had one bad guy and one storyline and one way it was going, one direction, it definitely, the narrative felt much more like a movie, like a really long movie, where this one was kind of broken up into episodes a little bit better. But how about you, Matt?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I agree with the feel of that, but it was still cohesive enough. I mean, all of the threads were there to carry it. Like, there weren't, like a real series, you're going to have the one, like the Halloween episode or like the everybody's trapped in the elevator episode, stuff like that. We still didn't get that. But yeah, it was definitely, you didn't have that one overarching theme through the whole series. Like, it was multiples.
Well, let's start with the first one. Obviously, Punisher started out way faster than I thought it was going to be. After watching, the first season, I kind of expected the second season to be a lot like the first, where it had the slow build, a lot of good action, a lot of good story, but built up towards something. I was pleasantly surprised to see that it did not. It just jumped right into the Punisher storyline, and by the end of the first episode, they are literally beating the ever-living shit out of each other. And where it ends with Punisher shooting him right in the head, Matt in the head. and
Yeah, I thought
leaving
it
him
was
on
going to be
the.
episode 6
Dang.
when Punisher showed up. Like, I figured he would be way into the series before.
Yeah,
we-
I did not think we would get a Punisher Daredevil fight that quick. I was pleasantly surprised. We all just kind of, because me and the Nerd Dome guys, we did a marathon together over at Luke's house, and we all just kind of sat there and looked at each other like, are we getting a Punisher Daredevil fight already?
Yeah, I was really shocked. I really was. Like I said, Daredevil, the first season was a slow burn. Jessica Jones, very much the same way. And so I just expected the same thing, and I'm glad they did that. But I think because it was so action-packed, the first 4 Punisher episodes, that first 4-episode arc, that I think that's what kind of led to some of the letdown in the middle of the season a little bit. But
Yeah, it did feel like 5 and 6 kind of broke the pacing a bit. It was like the way I think I would described it when we did our roundtable was it started out at like a 7 and then got up till 9 and then just suddenly dropped down to like a 4 and then worked its way back up again. And it
Yeah,
just
actually.
kind of it was a little disjointed. And that was really how I look at the whole season overall, is that there were a lot of pieces that I really liked. I liked this piece, I liked this piece, I liked this piece, but they didn't all form into one cohesive thing that I really 100% liked overall.
See, I like the up and down. That's something I've always been a fan of, whether it's like music or movies or TV shows or whatever. Like, I really like that we started way up here, and then all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, like, you're just, okay, now we're just going to talk for an episode, or we're going to kind of work on some stuff for a while. I know there's a lot of, to break from Daredevil, there's always a lot of criticism with The Walking Dead, how sometimes there's episodes that just focus on 1 or 2 of the characters, and everyone feels like it's really just kind of lazy filmmaking or storytelling, but I always really like it because you have the major arc and you know what's going on, but I think it's a really bold move to kind of say, okay, now we're going to stop and we're going to focus on some characters for a little bit, or we're going to introduce some new story elements, and then we're going to bring you right back to the craziness in a few minutes.
yeah, no, I'm with you on that. The Walking Dead, I don't get I get the criticism, but I'm the same way you are. I think those slower moments help develop the characters to an extent that you would not get if it was constantly fast-paced. And those slower moments, those character moments, really make you feel when a big moment happens or somebody dies or something super dramatic. It allows that to feel much more important, and Daredevil did that in this. I like that they changed it up a lot. I like that they actually finally saw some courtroom drama. I actually wanted to see more courtroom drama, honestly. Foggy, he was great in this series. There's things I didn't like about it, but I loved watching him actually be a lawyer, and I didn't think I'd like that. I was kind of sad when the trial ended the way it did, with Frank just torpedoing the whole thing. I was kind of like, oh, we're going to get kind of a Law & Order, Marvel SVU, whatever. It's going to be great. We're going to see.
As soon as Frank took the stand, I was like, oh, Pumpkin, you're going to torpedo yourself. I know you are. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. I know you want to. Don't do Oh, there you go.
I did not see the Wilson Fisk twist, though, when he decided he was going to jail. I'm like, okay, so clearly he's going to jail. The guards kind of nudging him and say, you remember what we told you? And he's like, all right. And then he torpedoes himself and like, all right, what's going on? And I did not, for some reason, I just didn't even, it was completely out of my mind that Wilson Fisk was even in prison. I
didn't make that connection either.
Yeah,
He just kind of vanished as a character at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I just figured he wasn't in the season. I figured, okay, they kind of ended the Kingpin storyline. There may be a cameo or some threads that they would, string us along to the next season. I didn't think at all that he was gone from the series, but I just didn't feel there was so much already going on this season with Elektra. We hadn't seen Elektra yet, but we knew she was coming. The whole Punisher storyline. I just assumed that with all these spinning, plates, that they were going to add something else. And even though he wasn't in it a lot, he was really. He became almost like the overarching villain of the entire Daredevil story.
He's a terrifying human being, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, his intensity this season was it was amazing.
Yeah, I didn't think he could top last season.
We're going to beat the shit out of Frank, and then we're going to turn around, we're going to beat the shit out of Matt, because we know we own this entire prison. It doesn't matter. No one is going to help the blind lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Smashing his head into a goddamn table.
So did anybody else get the connection that I thought they made? I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, but so clearly Kingpin knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. They kind of led you to believe that well, maybe not clearly, but they led you to believe that he's on that path. Like he's like,
Yeah, I think he hasn't quite gotten there yet, but I think he's on his way.
So was the moment when when Murdoch punched him, when Kingpin slamming his face down, and finally Matt's like dropped his, I think he was stunned, but he's also kind of playing into the whole, I don't want to let everybody know that I'm a highly trained ninja. But then finally he's just like, okay, I've got to defend myself or I'm going to die. And so he kind of throws that punch, and then after he left, Kingpin kind of licks his lip, and you can kind of see him think about it. And then all of a sudden he's like, give me everything on Matt Murdock. To me, I felt like that was a very subtle, almost like light bulb moment for Kingpin, where he's like, wait a minute, I've been punched like that before.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, that's probably going to be a big part of the inevitable season 3. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
This is going to get another season.
So do you think, with him knowing the identity, I know Kingpin likes to torture, he's known who Daredevil is a lot in the comic books, and he likes to torture him and not tell everybody. Do you think they're going to go down the Karen Page reveals to the world that Daredevil is Matt Murdock's storyline, or do you think it's just they're going to stick solely on the Kingpin?
I think it'll probably be on Kingpin.
Yeah, I don't feel like everybody. I keep talking to people who are like, "Oh, I hate Karen. Karen's the worst character." I'm like, "Okay, well, no, you're thinking of comic book Karen is kind of the worst.
She's a terrible character in the comics.
This is a different character, and I feel like they're working very hard to make sure that she is a protagonist. I think she is definitely going to get caught up in it. It wouldn't surprise me if she ended up dying next season.
Yeah.
But maybe from Bullseye, or
they better bring Bullseye in next year. Well, I do want to talk a little bit about where we're going to go, but much like the season this year, we're kind of jumping all over the place. So I do want to talk about where do we think the future of Netflix shows and Daredevil are going. So we'll save Bullseye for later. But back to Karen. I've heard those criticisms too, and I don't feel they're justified. In season 1, she was kind of whiny and she didn't really have a lot to do, but it wasn't necessarily her fault, the character's fault. It's just the writers didn't give her a lot to do in season 1. I felt like this year they did a great job of giving her a lot to do and making her a real intricate part of the series.
Well, and Foggy took care of all the whining this time around, so
Yeah.
she didn't have as much to do.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed her arc. Obviously, they had her take over for Ben Ulrich. I kind of wondered how they were going to do that, because with killing him in the first season, he's such a big part of Daredevil's story in the comic books that you had to have that reporter that was kind of tied into the whole story. So I was actually excited to see her take that mantle.
yeah,
But
it felt very organic too, which is so important when it comes to storytelling. It felt like a natural progression from point A to point B.
it did for me, except for one thing. As a guy who's written things, I found it funny that he didn't even, you guys can all relate. I don't know if you guys found it funny. I found it funny that he's like, all right, you can be a reporter. Yeah, you can be a reporter, but anybody even check if she can write anything?
That's what editors are for.
Yeah, she's sitting there staring at the blank screen, and I had like flashbacks of late nights where I'm doing the same thing, looking at that screen, and there's nothing worse as a writer than that pit in your stomach when you have the blank screen, and it's like it's talking to you. It's like, I hate you. But I thought it was kind of funny. I had one moment of, she can definitely investigate, and she's a good, investigator, but did anybody even check to see if she can write anything? They've given her the job as, a top reporter for this major newspaper, and nobody even bothered seeing if she can write a word of anything.
I did like that they made the editor character a little bit bigger too, because really last season he was that character that you hate. Like there's no real redeeming value to him.
They were setting him up all of last season to be the guy who was in Fisk's pocket, and then it turned out he wasn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and that was really cool. I like that.
Yeah, no, he
I liked it. They could very easily take it as, I just gave her the job because she's a pretty young girl. Mm-hmm. And they totally, they almost hit a point where they start alluding to that, and then they play the character totally straight, and they don't do it, and it's awesome.
Well, yeah, even at the very end when it finally does, when that scene that I was referencing where she's looking at the flashing cursor, he gives her the spiel, he gives her the bottle of scotch, and then he says 2,000 words by morning, and he walks out like an editor. I was like,
and a lot of other writers would have, that would have been the, I'm going to hit on her kind of moment or whatever, and they didn't do it, and it made it such a better moment. And the character's cooler for it too, because we don't have, that's not his driving force, and we still don't know what his driving force is other than he wants a good story.
Yeah, well, and I know I think the last time me and Kaitlyn actually did a show together was Daredevil Season 1 review, and one of her big criticisms of the first season was that the girls in season 1 had nothing to do, and there wasn't a lot of them, and so I felt like they did.
It wasn't so much that there weren't any. The girls in the season 1 didn't have anything to do. We had 3 beautifully developed, full-formed characters. We had Claire, Karen, and Vanessa. It was that there was a strange lack of women in the background.
Yeah.
It's like you looked at the background of the city, and it was like like how many. The population is not split down the middle, but it is not like there are 3 women in Hell's Kitchen for every 100 guys.
Well, I will say, for me, I mean, I wasn't paying close attention, but they did have a lot more women at the hospital. I mean, one of the nurses got killed, the other nurse was standing up for Claire.
Yep.
And of course, when they got into the room, it was all white guys, but that was kind of all the evil doctors trying to throw her out.
Yeah.
I want more Claire. Why did we not get more Claire this season?
There needs to be more Claire. She is just perfection. She is the best character. And it sounds like she's going to have a big role in Luke Cage, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, Rosario Dawson is a great actress in general, and every time she's on an episode, the episode shines. It's one of the better moments of that episode because she's so good, and her character is just such a good character. I mean, she's so committed to that character that you really believe anything she's saying.
Yeah.
You really believe that she would walk in and just quit her job over principal.
Yeah.
Well, she brings such a cool weariness to her character too. Like she's definitely, you can tell she's been through shit, and because of that, it makes her a better ally.
Mm-hmm. She was also part of one of the better world building aspects of that show, when she said. When Foggy was asking why she was stuck in the ER working such a terrible shift, she was stuck in the ER working a terrible shift because she broke Luke and Jess out of the hospital last season in Jessica Jones. I was like, yes, this is world building. This is perfect world building. This is what I want.
Well, they did it in a way, too, that you got a great scene with her and Foggy kind of talking about things they both know about, but they both don't really know each other know about completely. So it was a really good moment. It wasn't awkward. Like, I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but sometimes Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets really awkward moments when they're trying to connect the dots. That was really, for me, a really good moment in the series where they are connecting, Hell's Kitchen without being awkward about it.
Well, that's one of the things I've really liked about all of Daredevil is it's such a, it's superheroes and it's ninjas and fighting and, supernatural stuff possibly going on at some point, but it's all very organic and very real. Yeah. I love that we see Daredevil get tired when he's fighting. Mm-hmm. And so all of the world building stuff that in other series is very okay, we're going to put this right here now, and you're going to make that connection, and it's going to be awesome for you. This is just, we're going to kind of let it happen, and you're going to realize it, and it's just every aspect of that series is so well planned out, and it's I think pretty flawlessly executed that way.
Well, and to your point about him taking those breaks, you could see him getting tired. It makes him more relatable. I mean, those moments, every person who's ever ran or played sports or done anything has had that moment where you're dog tired and you have to kind of gather yourself and you take that big sigh and you're going back in for more. And in this season, he did that all the time. You could see him all right, halfway through the stairwell, he takes a deep breath and he's like, all right, here we go. It's go time.
Yeah,
he jumps in
there.
It was also kind of like how Frank just always had these horrible bruises on his face.
Yeah.
Last season,
worse and worse.
Matt was the one who was constantly getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of him. This season, it was let's just kick the ever-loving shit out of Frank all the time.
Well, that makes me so happy, too, because I hate in movies where, somebody goes through this major fist fight that would kill a normal human being, and then they do this, and everything's perfect, and, they look like they just walked off a photo shoot. And, I love, one of the first things I recall in recent memory is Brick. Joseph Gordon-Levitt just gets the can I say shit? I've said it a couple times now.
Swear away.
But, yeah, he just, he gets the crap beat out of him through the whole show, and, instead of just being pretty the whole time, he's more bruised and he wheezes, and when he gets up, he grunts towards the end. And with Daredevil, you see that. And then, so kind of back to the hospital scene, we were talking about, she did a thing, elsewhere, and then now in this series, we're seeing that she got punished for it, and it's actually affecting her lifestyle. And that's that takes a lot of thought as a writer.
Yeah. Well, did anybody else think, too, when you saw Punisher all beat up like that? We've never seen him like that in a movie. I mean, we've seen him shot, we've seen him bleeding, but we've never seen him kind of broken the way that he was in the series. When I saw him like that, it was like you know what? That's the way he always should have been. I never realized how I never thought that I needed that before. And all of a sudden you see it, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't ever imagine the Punisher going forward where he's not beat to hell,
Yeah.
bleeding, broken, twitchy. You know, one
So,
moment
the best way, it was not me who said this, it was another reviewer, but he said the reason why the Punisher worked so well is that they didn't try to make him cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't pose, he doesn't have a catchphrase, he doesn't kill people ironically.
Well, he
is
doesn't even
just,
get the skull until the end of the series.
yeah, he's not very, I don't want to say not very comic booky, that doesn't seem like the right way to describe it, but he's not like a superhero, or even a vigilante, he's just he's just motion, he is a battering ram that is going to come through and take care of anything in his way, and he's
Well,
gonna...
and at the same time, he's a guy. Like, he's just a person who's doing what he feels is right, and that's always been the appeal of the Punisher. But yeah, it's like you said, it's usually that appeal is very comic booky. You know, yeah, he's a guy and he's going through some stuff, but really we just want to see him like rock some fools, right? But in this, he's a guy and we see that emotion and we see the pain that he goes through while he's doing it.
Well, and I think they did, for me anyway, they did a great job of skirting that line of all the movies in the comic books make Punisher out as a guy who's a necessary evil to an extent. Like, he kills a lot of people, but you're like, oh, they're all bad people, and psh, you know, they deserved it. Where this show did a good job of showing, yeah, they do deserve it, but at the end of the day, what he's doing is not right. And even the show is self-aware enough to know that even that moment where Daredevil tells him, he's like, okay, this one time we can do it your way. We'll do it your way. And Punisher kind of gives him this look as like, what are you talking about? There's no doing it one time. There's no coming back. And I actually thought that was a really good moment for the Punisher, where he pushed Matt Murdock off the boat because he knew that Daredevil, this was not his path, and he was a good person. He may not like him, he may not always agree with him. You know, he may constantly be adversarial with him, but he knew that, you know what, once you go down I'm in a different place. And the show didn't try it. They didn't really try and make him an anti-hero, honestly. They just made him what he was. He's a guy whose family was murdered, so you understand why he's doing it, but you never said, okay, I understand that. You know, I agree with that the whole time. And how brutal he was, it was never a likable thing where you're like, in the movies, you know, he kills people and you're like, yeah, kill that son of a bitch. You know, in the TV show, you're like, oh, dude, what are you doing? Like when he's pistol whipping that guy at the bar and his face is all sticking out, and I'm just like, oh, just shoot him, just put him out of his misery. I mean, and he does it so mercilessly that you never look at him like that's a hero. And I think they did a great job of that, because it really made me wonder how they've ever sold Punisher comic books or how they ever pegged him as a hero, because this series kind of changed the way I thought about the Punisher, because I've always looked at him like kind of like a Wolverine. You know, he kills people when he has to, but yeah, he's an asshole, but hey, whatever, he's a necessary asshole. Now you look at him like, I don't dislike him, but he's a psychopath running around with machine guns, and you better not be breaking the law, or you're gonna get a bullet between the.
Do either one of you guys watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No.
Okay, so
Funny.
it's a great show. Andy Samberg's character at one point arrests a guy who, and he says, the guy is explaining why he killed a guy. And Andy Samberg's character goes around and says, cool motive, still murder.
Yeah.
And for me, that is the epitome of the Punisher, and actually one of the reasons why I think he wouldn't work as a solo series. It's cool, you know, cool motive, you're murdering people because you think it's the right reason. You're still murdering people.
I still want to see that series, though.
Yeah, but here's the thing. 13 episodes of that character murdering people would be, you know, I know, you know, me and Kaitlyn have gone rounds about, I know she loves Jessica Jones, and I'm not going to bash on Jessica Jones. I did like the series very much, but one of my complaints with it was just Jessica was so unlikable through a lot of the whole show. And I know she had her reasons, but for me, as just a you know, a guy who likes comic book shows, it was hard to really not root for her, because I wanted to see her take out the Purple Man, but I just didn't really like her most of the time when I was doing it. You think she was unlikable? Have a series where the entire show is this psychopath just murdering everybody in his way with
I never
no
found
friends,
her unlikable.
no
though.
allies.
I liked her from point one.
Yeah, well, Matt, we can agree that Brian is just wrong.
I mean,
You know,
she's difficult.
I am definitely
She-
one of the few who did not find Jessica Jones as enjoyable as everybody else did. Like I said, I do like the show. It's a good show. I like shows like Daredevil more, where it's a little faster paced, a lot more action, and I don't know. It was Jessica Jones for me was just a very dark, series with a lot of characters. There was some great characters, but there was a lot of just people I just didn't like. There was a lot of assholes in that show.
Oh yeah, well everybody in the show's an asshole, but
Yeah, there's a lot of assholes in Daredevil too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Matt gets really sanctimonious this season.
Yeah, he did. He did a lot. He was almost unlikable at certain points in this show. Like with Foggy, you really felt for Foggy. Foggy was just, he's like, I'm your friend and I don't want to see you die.
MVP of this season for me. Hands down, he was the MVP of the season for me.
He was a little whiny for me, but yeah, he's definitely a more major character instead of just a foil now.
Well, and they did such a great job setting up that friendship that at the very end when they dissolved the law firm, it really, I felt something. I was like, oh, that's kind of sad, man, watching them break apart like that.
Well, and it felt like, I mean, pretty much every breakup I've been through.
Well, and I thought that line he had was perfect when he's like, were you even going to ask me to stay?
Yeah,
and he's like,
exactly.
did you want me to? He's like, yeah, but I'm glad you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really good line from the writers. I mean, that was definitely, I think it epitomized their entire relationship, you know. And but before we get completely sidetracked, so kind of putting a cap on the Punisher. Overall, what do we think about the Punisher? I mean, we all seem to like the Punisher. We all kind of admit that he was a psychopath, and they did a good job. You know, do we like how his story went?
I didn't like how it ended. It got too convoluted.
It definitely seemed like they were going to put a grand conspiracy on the whole thing when they didn't really need to.
Yeah.
See, I thought the conspiracy was going to play out a little grander, maybe even. I don't know. Punisher's always been my favorite character, so I probably have the rose-tinted glasses. But I loved every single moment that he had on the screen. Like I thought it was, yeah.
All right. So
Are they rose-tinted glasses or are they just red glasses?
It might just be.
So, how about this then? Favorite Punisher moment?
Oh man.
End of episode 4.
Oh, when he's crying, when he's telling his story.
Yeah. Oh my God.
When he's reading. I'm sorry. When he's telling what his daughters. I forget what the rhyme, but when he's telling the rhyme, I was getting teary-eyed.
Oh yeah.
That is an Emmy moment. That is just the end of that season. Episode 4 is probably up there with one of my favorite episodes because that's also the episode where we see him get tortured. And he's like, I'm not breaking. You're going to hurt a dog? Okay, motherfuckers, I will break.
When he got the drill to the foot, I lost it. I was just like,
There were 2 collective moments during that season when everyone in our room completely lost their minds. And it was that, and then it was Stick with the Bamboo. Yeah. Those 2 seasons where everyone was like, no.
I made the O face.
Like, you know what? I didn't mind that as much because Stick is a fucking asshole.
No, it's true, but you think about what that would feel like.
I didn't enjoy seeing him get tortured, but I was like, yeah, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Not that Punisher was a nice guy, but they got him holding down. They got that drill was like that big around. I mean, that was not a small drill, and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, when he's walking fine later on.
That moment, especially, I don't know if you guys saw it, but did you guys see they kind of panned to Daredevil, and it was kind of dark, so you couldn't really see, but just tears were just coming down his face, when Frank's telling his story. But yeah, that was a good moment. My favorite moment was kind of a moment I didn't even know was going to be in it. Was when Frank had to kill all the people in prison, just because it was so insane.
That scene reminded me a lot of The Raid, the way it was filmed, the way the kills
which
were
I love
and
The
stuff.
Raid, so maybe that's partly why. But I like it because he realizes he's trying to get out. He's not trying to kill everybody. He's trying to get out. And then he realizes that he's trapped. And all of a sudden he gets that crazy, I don't know what you want to call it, but the Punisher tick where his hands are starting to twitch and his trigger finger's going. And he starts reciting his nursery rhyme. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this shit's going to be good. And just something, and you could see it. John Berthenol did such an amazing job flipping that switch where he could go from sympathetic to complete psycho, and you saw it in his face. And
so when I was watching that episode, I texted, it was back to the cemetery scene. I texted my friend like right after it happened. I had this moment where I was watching that scene, and I realized that like his character, the way he plays Daredevil, or not Daredevil, Punisher, it really reminds me of De Niro in Cape Fear. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. He even kind of looks a little bit like him, and sometimes like he has the one scene where he kind of twists up the one part of his mouth, the crazy yell thing, and like it's so like that era kind of just crazy scary De Niro that he pulled out when he was being crazy Punisher.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was amazing. But I texted my friend that and he said, I just barely told my brother that same comparison. Like, and so I think he was probably channeling a little bit of that on purpose. But I mean, yeah, like you couldn't really pick a better character to try and emulate if you want to be creepy, crazy.
I'm glad you didn't send that to me. I would have done a thought about De Niro the entire time I saw him on screen.
After I had that moment, that's all I could see.
Well, he definitely kind of walked like him, carried himself like him. That's a good analogy. Well, we've already kind of ran along talking about Punisher, so I know Kaitlyn is chomping at the bit to talk Elektra. So why don't we shift to Elektra? So I liked Elektra a lot. I really liked the new addition to the character. I liked most of the liberties they took with her versus her comic book alter ego. I thought she was true enough to the comic book, but different enough that made sense.
For me, the issue, and I talked about this in the article that I ended up writing for WatchPlayRead, was she had no agency in her life, and that is so important, especially when you're writing female characters. They need to have a life outside of all of the men in their lives. I'm about to get all feminist on you, but everything in her life, she didn't make any choices. She was basically kidnapped by Stick to avoid her destiny. She was then put in a foster home by Stick. Her initial relationship with Matt was a mission to her from Stick. She becoming the Black Sky thing, whatever, that plotline was weird, but
yeah,
I
still don't know what the Black Sky is. Hopefully they talk about it.
I feel like that's going to be big in season 3.
Yeah, but just everything, and even towards the end there, she died, but even the first real choice that she made for her life, the choice to self-sacrifice, that was taken away from her, because now the Hand is going to revive her. It's like nothing, she didn't have any choice in any aspect of her life. She was strong, she was compelling, Elodie Young absolutely killed it, she was terrifying, she was just the right brand of crazy, but she didn't have any agency in her own life. And it became really obvious by the end, and by the end of it, I was just so disappointed that there was this great character who could have been very independent and very strong and even been empowering, and in the end, she just kind of became yet another character whose life revolved around the men in her life.
So I have a question. So instead of, and obviously you feel very strongly about this, but what would you have liked to seen her do in this series? What for you could she have done? Because I do understand what you're saying. I mean, she did make some choices. I mean, she chose to go after Stick to kill him. She was going to leave, and she chose. Obviously, she didn't end up choosing to kill Stick. So you can look at her choices, whether they were influenced or were her own. But from your perspective, what would you have liked to see? If you could sit down with the writers and say, hey, listen, this is how I felt. What would you like to have seen her actually do? What would have been some choices that she would have made differently that you would have felt much more like, okay, good, I can see she does have agency in her life. She does control her own destiny. What do you think they could have done?
Her relationship with Matt. Her relationship with Matt and Elektra's relationship is a huge thing. I mean, they're not only huge in the comics and canonically, in that in the series, their relationship is humongous. Matt pretty much gives up his entire real life and is willing to give up everything to be with her in the end. And she didn't decide to do that. She, inevitably fell in love with him, but she didn't initially start the relationship because she wanted to. She started the relationship because she was told to. Even just that change would have made a big difference for me. The fact that she started dating Matt on orders from Stick really rubbed me the wrong way.
I hadn't actually thought about that, but yeah, like thinking back through, there are no moments that I can think of where she actually made her own full-on
exactly.
choice.
Well, maybe her self-sacrifice at the end, but even
like I said, that was taken away from her.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, because they're going to bring her back.
Hand. But even that, I felt that was a little anticlimactic. I would have actually liked to see that happen more with Bullseye in season 3. I think that would have been and it still might, but clearly she's not going to be herself when she's resurrected. I can't. Nobody goes through an ancient ninja resurrection and comes back the same person, so, or not evil. But yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. I do feel like they built a decent storyline, and I can understand where you're talking about that change, because in the comic book, yeah, you're right, it is her choice. She likes Matt because he's dangerous and he's different, and she's a little crazy. So I definitely could see how that could be. I don't think. I mean, I don't perceive to see what the writers were thinking, but I guess story wise, it made sense in an aspect because that way you could bring in Stick and connect her to the sky. Personally, I'm with you. I would like to see her not connected to this black sky or dark sky. I don't even know what it is. Ancient ninja hoodoo, but I don't know. But
I think they're going to have a lot of explaining to do in season 3.
yeah.
You mean about their quite literal giant plot hole?
Yeah.
Well, the
I don't
40-story
think
hole
it's
didn't make complete sense to you? What are you talking about?
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that it's planned because, there's going to be spin-off series and there's obviously going to be a season 3 and stuff like that. Like, in my head, they're thinking, okay, we're going to make this seem really huge and ominous, and then we'll make people wait for a while. And then once we show it, it'll be like, oh, yeah,
Well,
that's,
Well, to their credit a little bit, last season they had Stick in one episode, and in this episode, and he left a lot of questions. Now, granted, we still have some questions about the ninjas in the hand and the 40-story hole, but they did more, they had much more of a story arc in this season that they set up from the last one that explained more about Stick and kind of what was going on. Maybe not to some people's, chagrin, but But I do think this is definitely a storyline that we're going to see later on. I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see more of this kind of culminate in the Defenders and Iron Fist. So
yeah, I think we will. Also, can I say ninjas? I mean, it's been way too long since ninjas have been cool in a movie or a series.
Oh, I agree.
And as soon as they showed up on the screen, I was like 8-year-old me watching American Ninja kind of thing. Just like,
well, anybody watch American Ninja or Ninja Turtles growing up? Ninjas make great bad guys. Did
yeah,
anybody else kind of
hand and all that is.
Did anybody else think that they were going to pull the thread of a storyline when Claire made the observation that they had the Y incision, that maybe the ninjas, the hands were already dead, and that maybe they were going to use that as a plot device so that Matt could kill somebody and not feel guilty about it?
Oh no, I didn't think about that.
No, I didn't think they would go there because I feel like Matt is religious enough that he would believe that an animated body wouldn't have a soul.
Uh-huh.
And that's one of the reasons why I think him going against Elektra coming back is going to be really hard on him because in his mind, she died. And when she comes back, she's inevitably not going to be the same. And I just feel like from a religious point of view, he would only be seeing the body, not the person.
Yeah, because she shouldn't be back.
Yes.
Or it could be a religious kind of thing for him. She's back, and that's,
resurrection type of thing.
Lazarus kind of thing.
And the only reason why I mentioned that is because of the fact that this season made such a big deal out of killing and not killing. That line that the heroes walk on whether which side of it they are, especially with the Punisher and Daredevil, and they're all and their very different beliefs on how to deal out justice. I just thought it was a very interesting scene to point out the fact that these ninjas already seem to be dead, and so I just kind of wondered for me where that was going.
Yeah, and I think that'll be, again, in my head, hopefully, that's with more of the season 3 kind of stuff. Like, I can't imagine they put that there and then just went, oh, oops, we forgot about.
And I do wonder if you look at like the Avengers, nobody wants to see your heroes murdering hundreds of people. So one of the things like with that Joss Whedon did with Avengers 1 and 2 is the first bad guys are soulless aliens, that are mind controlled by somebody else. The second bad guys are robots, and you can smash as many robots as you want to, and nobody feels bad. So I kind of wonder if they're setting this up that the Hand are already basically ninja zombies, so that way when the Defenders, when Jessica's taking people's heads and smashing them together, and Luke's, throwing people off buildings, and Iron Fist is punching through people, that you don't feel like these guys are just mass murderers.
Well, it's also the Netflix series is also a completely different subset of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
you still got to make your heroes likable.
I think they're going to cross over in the end, but right now they still feel very separate. Not just tonally, but it feels like Marvel is to almost a comical level trying to keep their television and their Marvel movie universes very separate, and it's.
All right, I want to talk about that, and we got about 10 minutes, so we'll kind of end wrapping up about that and talking about the future of the series. But before we move on to that, we didn't spend a lot of time on Elektra, so is there anything else anybody else would like to say about Elektra?
I wrote an entire article about it. Go to WatchPlayRead.com and read it.
All right, Matt, anything you want to say about Elektra?
No, I think we covered it.
My last thing I'd like to say is I love her new costumes. First of all, the comic book version, never made any sense ever.
No.
I mean, a
And
lot of comic
I've talked to people who have cosplayed it, and it's a miserable costume to wear.
just from a ninja standpoint, a bright red costume that has all these like things hanging down on the legs and arms. It just didn't make any sense. So I really loved her new costume. I liked her a whole lot. The only thing I didn't quite like that I thought was kind of dumb was she didn't get her size until she killed the Frenchman, and then she just had them, and then she decided to keep them. I didn't quite get that. I would have liked to see those be her weapon of choice right from the beginning, which they always were in the comics. So
Yeah.
and obviously I did not like her dying immediately. I thought that was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I would like to point out before we move on to our final segment, I had one moment in the whole series that I was massively disappointed, and I like to point out to the writers, if they're listening, because I'm sure they are, that you missed a
Obviously.
golden opportunity to have one of the epic fist-pumping moments of the entire series. The minigun.
Oh
Okay?
yes.
The
I've seen
minigun
so many
was-
people talking about the minigun.
was shadowed the entire damn season, and they had Frank Castle with it in the promo posters, and when they had hundreds of ninjas sitting on top of the roof, it could have been. How great would it have been when Matt and Elektra have their moment, and they're so serious, and I love you, and I'm going to be with you, and we just got to go take out these ninjas, and they kick open the door, and right when they kick open the door, this hail of bullets come and just kill almost all the
I
ninjas.
really, really wanted Frank to show up and help the two of them at the end.
Well, and
Totally
he
forgot about the
kinda did.
minigun.
But way late, Elektra's already dead. He kills like 3 ninjas that Matt could have easily dispatched, so it seemed kind of pointless. But it would have been way cooler if he just
But
mowed
that
them
gave
all
him the
down.
cool nod moment, like, hey, bro. you
Yeah,
cup,
and
you
then
know?
gave him the nod, and then left before he even finished it off. Like, yeah, I know you got this, and then just left. And that would have been so great. I think it would have been put a perfect cap on that character's arc. Well, maybe not even a story arc, but just this cool character moment. And I don't know. I really think they wanted to do it, but for whatever reason, the last minute decided not to.
I think we're all around the same age, so I mean, like, who doesn't like a good just dude with a minigun, raking into
Come on, we've all
tons
seen
and tons of
Predator.
bad guys?
But anyway, that's the only thing I wanted to say in this whole show. I was gonna talk about my displeasure and the fact that we didn't get to see the minigun mowing down ninjas at least once. Come on.
why
All
we
right,
need
so
a Punisher
moving on to the
series.
future. Obviously, like I said, we all like what they've done so far. Every series has been a success to varying degrees, and what do we think? So obviously, we think there's going to be a season 3 of Daredevil. I can't imagine any world that we don't get a season 3 of Daredevil. What do we think season 3 is going to be?
Bullseye.
Yeah.
Bullseye, Kingpin, going to be that
Bullseye,
level?
Kingpin. I hope Vanessa comes back because Vanessa is fabulous.
She was missed in this season.
If Bullseye's not in it, there are going to be so many angry nerds. Like, they can't not have him in there at this point.
Yeah, well, I agree. Well, it was kind of sad to see Jason Statham apparently was up for the role of Bullseye, and he backed out at the last moment. I would have loved to see Jason Statham as Bullseye. I think that would have been a great cast.
Yeah, he turned around and dissed on the Marvel movies pretty hard too, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, no. That's not going to happen. That bridge has been burnt. He scorched earth on that one, but I think it would have been cool. But, yeah, I'm excited for Bullseye. I do think we'll see more of the Elektra storyline and the continuation of the Hand. I feel like maybe they're saving the Hand for its own season at some point, but
I think they might actually be saving the Hand for the Defenders.
I think that's what they're just building up
yeah.
the big villain. It would make sense.
So maybe there'll be just kind of a presence here and there through the other series, and then, yeah, that would make perfect sense, actually.
Be like the Foot
I mean, what
Clan
better
is-
for a group to fight off? I mean, you need a big threat to fight off, to need 4 or more heroes to fight it off, because we don't know who's actually going to be in the full Defenders lineup by the time we get there, because there are people who could show up in the that haven't quite arrived yet.
Maybe that's what they're saving the Punisher minigun for. But I mean,
Yes.
well, and at that point too, you're gonna have Luke Cage who has superpowers. Jessica Jones, even though she didn't do a lot of superpowered things, does have superpowers. Hey, I hope season 2 we get to see a little more superpowered Jessica Jones. That's all I'm asking for. And then we're gonna have Iron Fist who has superpowers. So you definitely need overwhelming. You either need a couple really strong, powerful villains or overwhelming numbers that they can.
Yeah, and
dispatch.
you also have Trish from Jessica Jones is working towards possibly taking up her Hellcat
That'd be cool.
title, and Frank I could see Frank jumping in pretty easily.
Yeah. No,
So there are quite a few people who could jump in and even expand just the Defenders roster. So yeah, I think the Hand is probably going to end up being who they end up going up against in the Defenders.
Do we
I
think
think
the
that makes a lot
Elektra
of sense,
storyline
too,
is
with
going
kind
to
of
be
the,
resolved next season, or do you think that's going to roll into the Defenders as well?
I think Elektra is going to pretty much stay for the most part in Daredevil's story, and then the Hand is just gonna kind of be the insinuating incident, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think kind of what Kaitlyn was saying, it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like, they've tried to keep, at very least the TV Marvel series, very kind of grounded in the real world. You know, there's the whole ninja resurrection thing that they kind of touch on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the characters for the most part, you know, they have some superpowers, but there's no big aliens, there's no big, huge monsters tearing up the city and stuff like that. They're all people-looking kind of villains and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense with that style of a world that to bring those people together, you need a mass of things rather than just like, you know, it's not going to be one big evil overlord kind of superhero kind of thing. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, well, and wrapping this thing up, we got a couple minutes left, and I did want to touch base on what Kaitlyn mentioned a minute ago about the one downside that I'm having with all these shows in general is Marvel's, I don't want to say inability to tie them together, because they've done a great job of tying them together, but their reluctance to actually just have Jessica Jones show up for half an episode on Daredevil, or have Luke Cage show up, or any of these characters. You know, one of the things that DC television universe has done so well is that at any moment Flash could show up on Arrow for 5 minutes and then he's gone, but he's part of the series. And I really feel like Netflix and even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, I mean, you know, Agent Carter's done a good job of having some of the, you know, the elements pop in and out, but they've established these well enough now, and we know the universe. We don't need Captain America or Iron Man to show up, but I think we do at some point need to start having these television shows start tying in together with actual appearances of the main characters.
Yeah.
I'm actually planning an entire article on this that I want to get up within the next 3 or 4 days. That's basically going to be talking about why Marvel is not doing a very good job at this aspect of their television shows. What? Because I also wrote another thing earlier this week about the Flash Supergirl crossover.
Oh, that was so good.
And it was awesome. And how why that the DC TV verse is working so much better than the movie verse even is right now, and the things that DC could learn from their TV shows to apply to their movies. But for me, it all comes down to show, don't tell. Mm-hmm. And there are very easy, subtle ways to connect your universes. I haven't watched this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I know that there is I think it's a news report. They talk about a gang war in Hell's Kitchen.
The news report shows it shows something that happens on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and at the very bottom there's a banner that says "Gang War Erupts in Hell's Kitchen" at the bottom.
See, that's the kind of stuff I want. I don't want somebody going, so about that thing that happened in Sokovia. Oh yeah, that was really interesting. I want subtle world building, and the Marvel Universe was built on Easter eggs and after credit stingers. It just seems like they're not taking advantage of the fact that they could be doing a lot of subtle world building in the background or even in the foreground.
And I think they've done a good job of building this world. Now they actually need to allow the pieces to play in it. So, like I said, in a world where we have Flash crossing over different networks, and I know CBS is partially owned by, you know, CW and CBS have some of the same ownership, but still, we're talking cross networks. That would never used to happen, and now it does. There is no reason why we can't get, you know, and even forget Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I would love to see Coulson pop in Hell's Kitchen just for an episode, or even just a few minutes of an episode. But, you know, the Netflix shows, there is really no reason that Jessica Jones or Luke Cage could not have made a cameo in this season of Daredevil.
Do you guys, I mean, like, Hell's Kitchen is not big.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yeah.
It's like a 4-block radius.
Yeah, it's not even the same world. It's like it's the same neighborhood that they all live in, basically. Like, they should cross each other on accident by this point.
Well, and at this point for these Netflix series, there's no reason for them to be coy anymore. You know, when they had I forget her name, but Trinity was having lunch with Foggy. Yeah, and she was like, you know, he's talking about superhero and stuff, and she's like, you have no idea, and she's like, try me. You know, you don't need to be coy. We just got done watching Jessica Jones. We all know. There's no reason to be like, what, you didn't hear about Jessica Jones? She was all over the news because it happened a block away. Or there's no reason why, you know, in the next season of Jessica Jones, you can't, well, I guess you won't show Nelson Murdoch anymore, but you know, they could have showed the law firm easily or had Daredevil pop in Jessica Jones last season. So I think that's the one downside of these series that they do need, that they can easily fix, and I do think they need to fix going forward. We don't want to wait till the Defenders. I personally don't want to wait till the Defenders to see all these guys together, because by that moment, not only that, by the time you get to the Defenders, if that's the first time they all meet, it really, because I think it's only a 6 or 8 episode series, it just becomes really awkward.
I've heard up to 8. I've heard 5 to 8 miniseries.
Yeah, you don't need to spend the first couple episodes getting to know everybody. But anyway, that's my last little thoughts about the series. This is the only thing I'd like to see them do better. So, well, we're about at our time. I know you guys got to run and other things to do. So, any final? Yeah, I know we do have jobs, people. As much as we love to do this for a living, we have to make that money. So, any final thoughts you guys have before we jet?
I have a 2-part review of Daredevil Season 2 on the website where I get more in depth about what I liked and what I didn't like. So go read that.
Those on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it. I don't really have anything to say that I haven't already. I am in love with the series. Like, there were moments that literally gave me chills this season. And even, I've heard a lot of people that loved the whole series that were still pretty unhappy with the whole, showing her the mask at the very end. It still blew me away. Like, I loved it. So, there were little things here and there that I think they could have done better. And I think we are past the point where we need to be coy. Like, I don't want to see the whole series of every single character now before they start meeting each other. They don't have to do that because we all know. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, I love it, and I will watch everything they do because it's been amazing so far. Yeah.
Well, I'm with you. Netflix, good job. Last thing I want to say, Daredevil New Mask was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was great. So, anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Everybody, thank you for joining us for a 50-minute conversation about Daredevil. If you have not watched it and you made it all the way through, still watch the season. There's a lot of surprises that we
ruined for everybody.
Anyway, until next time, guys. See you later.
Thank you.